Story 1. Personally, my anxiety level is at an all-time high, and I really don't feel well. It's as if my body is preparing for the worst. Every time I eat, I feel like it may be my last meal. When I go to the bathroom, I have a sense that something could happen. And when I step outside, I worry that I may not return alive. If there is heavy work being done in my area, I am reminded of sirens. I can hardly imagine being separated from my family. I worry I will never have the chance to see my loved ones again, especially those who live far away. It's terrible. It feels like the challenges we faced during the pandemic have returned in an even more frightening way. I cannot fathom the pain of those in the most affected regions. Just today, I saw a woman on television crying because her husband built their home with so much care and hard work. But now it is destroyed, leaving them with nowhere to go. I wish everyone understood that human lives are precious. Humanity itself is precious. Fighting for any reason will only increase tensions. Instead of going to war, we should implement stronger systems to prevent terrorism and promote peace. Let peace prevail. Story 2. Honestly, I hope and pray that peace prevails. It is a sad state of affairs. I wish the rest of the world understood that war should be the last resort. Every incident should be investigated thoroughly and resolved through diplomatic channels. If nothing happens after that, only then should countries consider going to war. We have seen time and again that emotions cloud people's judgment, and media fuels mass hysteria, resulting in civilian casualties. Story 3. The way every comment here reads exactly the same and all use the same phrasing and terms makes this feel like a repetitive thread. Story 4. I wish the rest of the world understood that there is a huge amount of information warfare between both sides, and even civilians participate in it. You cannot pick a side because you should not be sure whom to believe. Story 5. Hope civilians on both sides remain safe. The rest of the world, particularly Western countries, needs to understand that if this situation is not de-escalated and turns into a full-blown war, then the immigration issues they often complain about will increase significantly. Therefore, they should help calm things down. Story 6. Wish the world saw us not just as a conflict, but as neighbors with a shared history, pain, and hope for peace. Story 7. A bomb dropped just a few miles away. I couldn't sleep and heard gunfire all night. My heart goes out to those affected. We are tired of living in fear, yet still holding on to hope. We want peace for everyone, not just ourselves. Story 8. There is no hatred for the common Pakistani people, but there are terrorist groups in Pakistan that have attacked Pakistani civilians in the past. For some reason, the Pakistani military supports these groups and attends their funerals. When we lose 26 tourists who have nothing to do with politics, who can barely speak Hindi, and tourists with families are killed in the name of religion, terrorist groups linked to Pakistan publicly claim these attacks. So why shouldn't India retaliate? Story 9. I am not living near the border, so it hasn't had any effect on my life. I don't engage in international travel, so the airspace above Pakistan being closed to Indian planes didn't impact me. Life continues as normal at the moment. I don't watch the news. It isn't helpful for me to be involved in an outrage machine. My work does not require me to know anything beyond general international news. I have enough personal problems. I can't worry about issues I have no control over and cannot fix. I would prefer that there is no violence on either side and no disharmony. Some friends have tried to involve me in discussions about the war. These individuals follow the news closely and allow it to affect them psychologically. I can't participate in conversations that require me to express intense negative emotions. As a result, they've gone quiet with me for now. That's fine. Story 10. I am an American living in India. I haven't been sleeping well, and I've made a plan of action in case I hear air raid sirens in my area. I hope that the current ceasefire holds. Story 11. The history between the two nations shows a continuous sponsorship of terrorism and attacks, resulting in the deaths of innocent Indian civilians simply because of their Hindu identity. There is a certain extent to which terrorism is tolerated. In the West, when a single terrorist attack occurs, there is immediate and strong retaliation. India has been suffering for decades, Some individuals from Pakistan argue that their country is more affected by terrorism, yet they question why their government shelters terrorists in lavish houses and fails to hand over those responsible for major attacks on Indian soil. Of course, everyone desires peace, but peace cannot be achieved solely by the efforts of one side. Story 12. It is heartbreaking, but I believe India has the right to protect its people. No country should have to tolerate constant threats or cross-border attacks. Story 13. Not from South Asia, but Pakistan has just violated the ceasefire. If you want to know who the good person is in this situation, it's the one who desires peace. Pakistan has clearly shown the world that it does not want peace. Story 14. I am Pakistani. I have seen the ugly faces of both Indians and Pakistanis during this time. How cruel and vulgar each side has become. They hardened their hearts to the extent that they did not even see each other as humans. Pakistan has been plagued by problems for a long time. The military has a chokehold on civilian politics, and we cannot breathe freely. Our generals and commanders are our politicians, bureaucrats, and economists. The Central Intelligence Agency funded the Pakistani military during the 1970s to counter India and support the atrocities in Bangladesh. Subsequently, the military sponsored terrorist programs to battle against India and Afghanistan, all in the name of countering the Soviet Union. India has seen growing extremism. Even during this time of war, Muslims in India cannot catch a break simply due to being a minority. I do not understand India. They have achieved many great things. They went to the moon and offer offshore manufacturing services along with accounting and other sectors. Why do they keep provoking Pakistan? The Pahalgam attack was a critical security failure for India. Rather than investigate or open a diplomatic channel, the government decided to accuse Pakistan and launch military actions hastily. Right now, Pakistan does not have the resources to sponsor terrorism against India. We are fractured and bruised. India made a significant error. Before this war, the Pakistani civilian population was starting to stand up against the military. Now, these attacks have only legitimized the military. The little hope we had has slipped away. India needs to seriously reevaluate where it is heading. Do not bring yourself down. You are making progress. Let go of the extremism and fascism. Focus on nation building. It's time to concentrate on more relevant matters than Pakistan. Pakistanis, we need to resist against our military. Whether you like it or not, there has been a massive brain drain from Pakistan. We need to improve many things. I pray we get there. Pakistan is a great country. We are resilient, and we will endure no matter what. Both nations need to make peace and start working toward cooperation. We can achieve so much if we pool our resources and let bygones be bygones. I do not hate Indians. I work alongside many of them in Australia. They are kind, smart, and educated people. They also make good food, except for biryani. Hyderabadis make the best biryani. I will not let propaganda and bigotry dictate how I treat people. I hope we can all live in peace and harmony one day. Story 15. I dislike it when the world refers to this as a conflict and tries to balance the narrative. Pakistan is clearly the aggressor, repeatedly using state-sponsored terrorism to harm Indian civilians. India's retaliation is self-defense, which it is entitled to. Pakistan consistently uses civilian cover for its military attacks and plays the victim on the global stage. The world needs to recognize the reality. Pakistan is attacking India, not necessarily through conventional warfare, but through ongoing terrorism. There is ample evidence that Pakistan shelters these terrorists. The difference is that India is a larger country, arguably more powerful, making it difficult for the world to acknowledge that India is truly the victim in this situation. I hope the world sees this for what it is and recognizes it as Pakistan-sponsored terrorism and Indian self-defense, rather than a trivial conflict. Story 16. Listen carefully to the speech of Pakistan's army chief, Munir, 1 week before the tragic murders of 26 Hindus. Consider all the other terrorists who reside there and then determine what should be done to a country that has been controlled by a corrupt army since its inception. Story 17. I wish the Pakistani administration understood that India has no tolerance for state-sponsored terrorism, As long as they do not antagonize us, we do not care about them. To the people of Pakistan, we have no conflict with you. I am sure you know what your army and administration are doing. We hope you can influence your administration in the right direction. Let us all live in peace. Story 18. Well, it's over now. I implore all foreign individuals to understand that this is not a conflict where both sides are the same. India has only been responding to actions taken by Pakistan, and that has been the case for the past 80 years. The responsibility for all of this lies with Pakistan. Story 19. Pakistan is a breeding ground for Islamic terrorism. That is what madrasas are used for, which are funded by money coming from abroad. Story 20. As an Indian, we just want to be left alone. As a country, we have better goals and ambitions to pursue economically and socially. Pakistan, on the other hand, is struggling. They are failing in many indicators and need a scapegoat to blame for their issues. Nobody I know, though there are always exceptions, wants war. It is useless and wasteful, just like an annoying neighbor who constantly complains. If they want to self-destruct, that is their choice, but they should find a way to do it without involving US. Story 21. The last few days have been filled with anxiety. The Indian and Pakistani populations become agitated by their media and governments, prompting them to engage in senseless conflicts. The younger generation has not witnessed any major war in their lifetime, and news about drone attacks, missiles, and shelling has been particularly frightening, especially for those living in urban centers. What people do not understand is that war should not be treated lightly. It is far more serious than that. It is indeed hell, and witnessing innocent civilians die is heartbreaking. Europe has experienced full-scale wars in World War I and World War II and has vowed never to see such a spectacle again. I hope that both of our countries also mature and stop indulging in needless conflicts. This behavior is detrimental to both business and the human psyche. Likely, the rest of the world, especially the global north, needs to emerge from their neoliberal bubble and view the countries in the global south as more than just sources to exploit and extract resources from. Story 22. I was hoping to get a good sleep tonight, but Pakistan broke the ceasefire, and now it's the same situation. Story 23. I am currently living in Canada, but my family is in the border regions and the national capital, so I am very worried about them. I follow the news every day, but being so far away, I cannot verify what is real or not. I just saw that a ceasefire has been declared. Story 24. Not in the country now, but I was born there. I have family in Punjab, Pakistan, and I have distant relatives in Punjab, India. I have Kashmiri friends, and my closest friend happens to be Indian. This conflict affects all of us. More than anything, it tries to reopen colonial wounds to fulfill agendas for the sake of power and political influence. The disappointment is evident when you look into echo chambers of online forums, where there is a demand for retribution to achieve some form of justice. This is misplaced, and the actions taken by both countries did nothing to provide justice for the people who committed the crimes. It places the region and its divisions in a very unstable position. From the world's perspective, I believe it's essential to gain a deeper understanding of the region's history and the political philosophies behind these labels. It's crucial to recognize that both countries are engaged in a relentless disinformation campaign, both in the news and echoed on platforms by mostly misinformed individuals. More than that, save your sympathies and support for Kashmir and the Kashmiri people. Story 25. I live in the south of India. It has not affected me at all, other than the war-mongering I see on Reddit. I avoid the news, which I find to be worse. The propaganda machinery here is in overdrive. Story 26. The United Kingdom should take action and lead a peace initiative since they were responsible for the situation. Story 27. Now you know why Pakistani governments and military dictatorships have tried to exert influence over Afghanistan through proxies like the Taliban. They aim to gain strategic depth for their country, whose major population centers lie close to the Indian borders and are under threat. If it were not for these misguided policies, incidents like September 11th with Al-Qaeda establishing a presence there could have been avoided. The entire world has suffered due to the flawed policies of Pakistan and its military leaders. Story 28. I wish our governments would stop being impulsive and initiate peace talks and negotiations. Alternatively, someone should intervene to help them see reason and remain calm. If the conflict escalates to a nuclear level, it will not only impact the two countries involved. Many innocent people have already lost their lives on both sides. Additionally, the individuals responsible for the attack in Pahalgam should be apprehended and imprisoned for life. This situation began because of their actions. Story 29. I wish the world could understand how difficult it was to hear my Kashmiri grandparents and every single member of my family in that generation spend their entire lifetime hoping to return to their home, land, bank lockers, and businesses in Srinagar, and never being allowed to buy the Indian forces against international law and United Nations resolutions. Story 30. The rest of the world should catch up and start to recognize that India will no longer tolerate cross-border terrorism, which has been funded for a long time. Pakistan is a failed state, and it is about time the rest of the world did something about it. Story 31. I am from India and am concerned about my family and friends who live there. I do not support war as a concept, but conflict is inevitable after the recent terror attack on innocent people in Pahalgam. I stand by my country and support the necessary actions we are taking to ensure the safety of our nation and its citizens, and to prevent such a tragedy from happening again. To all my fellow Indians, let's stay strong together and hope for a future where our nation does not have to live in fear and despair. Story 32. I wish the world would stop equating the India-Pakistan conflict with that of Israel-Palestine. It is not about a conflict between Hindus and Muslims. Pakistan has been fostering terrorist sympathizers and terrorists for the last 6 decades. India has had enough of this and has paid the price for Pakistan's actions. India retaliated because terrorists from Pakistan initiated attacks by killing civilians on Indian soil. India has never targeted Pakistani civilians. The military is merely a cover for terrorists. They harbor hatred towards India, and every penny Pakistan earns is diverted towards the military rather than social welfare schemes for its citizens. India promotes world peace, but not at the cost of filling coffins with our own people. Enough is enough. Story 33. Apparently, we are the perpetrators for attacking Pakistan. 50 civilian deaths are common and not worth reacting to. Story 34. The world needs to understand that India is only defending itself. Pakistan initiated this by killing innocent civilians based on their religion. They killed Hindus and Christians and one Muslim because he tried to help. Every country has the right to retaliate, and that is what India is doing. Story 35. I am from India, and I feel confident. No one my age has seen a war yet in their lifetime. The closest we got was after the Balakot airstrikes. People are scared because Pakistan is perceived as a significant threat that might inflict damage on us. Our High Commissioner to the United Kingdom articulated this well. Military and civilian assets are intended to defend our sovereignty. We cannot cower under the guise of wanting peace to avoid an unprovoked act of war, especially after Pakistan violated the ceasefire again, simply because the enemy might inflict damage on our homeland. As for the world, it does not matter whether they understand the situation, as there is nothing to comprehend. The facts have been evident for almost half a century, similar to the Israel-Palestine conflict. Narratives become crucial in cases of annihilation, where public opinion can influence alliances and support. However, this is not one of those wars. At best, we will engage in a limited border war, so public opinion in the West or elsewhere does not matter. Western governments know well what Pakistan truly represents: a dictatorial regime that uses terrorism as a tool of statecraft. Pakistan justifies its existence entirely in opposition to India. It has no historical, linguistic, or cultural foundation to claim as its own, and was formed solely as a safe haven for Muslims of the subcontinent who otherwise might have been persecuted in a Hindu-majority India, a claim proven false 76 years later. Pakistan was involved in the 1970-71 East Pakistan genocide and now in the oppression of residents in Balochistan province. This undermines the Muslim unity on which Pakistan bases its existence, and yet it has been complicit in killing millions of its Muslims. Some may argue that India is unsafe for minorities, but that is not true. Given its large population, a few instances of communal violence are inevitable. However, these incidents are not state-sanctioned pogroms like in Pakistan, where minorities have been drastically reduced. Yet, the United States continues to fund and arm the Pakistani state, even after Pakistan fought in the war on terror on the side of the terrorists. Just yesterday, the International Monetary Fund, influenced by the United States, provided another bailout to Pakistan. Another example is Ukraine, which for 23 years sold military equipment to Pakistan and consistently voted against India in the United Nations, yet today seeks Indian assistance in swaying Russia. The point is, it does not matter if India is right. In realpolitik, Europeans, Americans, Chinese, or anyone else will support Pakistan if it serves their interests. Is it morally correct? No. But does everyone do it? Yes. We know that we have no one to support us, but we also know that we can endure any challenges thrown our way. Almost a millennium of Islamic invasions and close to 200 years of colonial occupation of the subcontinent, followed by 76 years of independence rife with 5 wars, over 6 insurgent uprisings, and 1 brief dictatorship, and we have overcome it all. There is no reason why we can't beat it again and again. Ours is a just cause, and victory will be ours. That is why I am confident. Story 36. The word terrorism being used frequently here shows that the free world has learned nothing from the past 24 years. Story 37. Both sides are fueled by hatred and propaganda. Their governments fund separatist and insurgent regimes across the border and use the other's aggression to justify political agendas and military budgets. They finance media to spread hatred and anger against each other. Nowhere else in the world do you see people with so much common DNA and such vile hatred purely based on nationalistic and religious beliefs that do not affect them personally. Hundreds of times more people die in India and Pakistan from crime, violence, and poverty each year than from any terrorist or insurgent act. Yet their leaders only react to the latter and wage wars. It is pure idiocy at this point, but they respond by calling each other terrorists and extremists and claiming they cannot tolerate it any longer, even when individuals from either country are not being personally affected by the conflict. Story 38. Some inconveniences exist, with a nationalistic echo chamber at full potential, trying to provoke a sentiment of patriotism because, after all, it's war. Everyone knows India is going to win, but there is still a portrayal of outrage against the enemy country as we move on with our lives. Each side believes they are defending their country with all media, including local news as well as social media platforms, pushing their respective propaganda. A minority will question their governments on whether the war was actually necessary, but they are often labeled as anti-national and defamed simply for expressing their doubts. So yes, just like any other day. Story 39. The whole world needs to understand that the majority of people in both countries dislike their leadership. Politicians, and in the case of my country, Pakistan, generals often initiate skirmishes and conflicts to try to boost their ratings. Story 40. I hope the rest of the world understands terrorism and its origins. Most Indians who do not live in Jammu and Kashmir are unaffected directly, but a few exams and the Indian Premier League have been delayed. A few airports are also closed for a week. Story 41. There is nothing more devastating than watching innocent civilians die simply because 2 countries cannot resolve their differences. Story 42. I am scared for my friend and her family, as well as for the fellow Indians, as she is living in the epicenter of all this. This is very distressing. We had hoped that this conflict would end soon because of the ceasefire agreement, but Pakistan has violated it. I just pray that this all ends soon and that we can all be peaceful again. Story 43. Not much. India is a large nation, and I live far from the western borders that Pakistan shares. One thing I would like the world to understand is that people in the West are often unaware of terrorism outside their region. I encourage everyone who has the time to explore how India has suffered because of the terrorism that Pakistan has harbored for decades. Story 44. I don't want a full-scale war. I don't want civilians hurt on either side. But as long as this conflict continues, that's going to happen. I want people to understand that this didn't just start because of Pahalgam. Just go through that list of terrorist incidents. It's harrowing. Over 100 terrorist attacks, with around 50 of those confirmed directly by terrorist groups claiming responsibility. I want Pakistani officials to be held accountable for these. These are not small numbers. I want their civilians to be aware of this, but their government needs to take responsibility. Their blatant ties to terrorism are aggravating. If this many attacks had happened in a Western country, every media outlet in the world would be calling for action. But since it's not the West, it's simply met with silence. Story 45. Honestly, as an Indian Muslim, I do not know how I am supposed to feel, seeing Asad Owaisi shouting his increasing love and patriotism towards India and hate towards Pakistan, while at the same time, Muslims from Bihar and Bengal are killed serving in the Indian military, and a Muslim woman is leading the military press conference. Yet, I see mainstream media and certain groups calling for hate towards Muslims. We Indian Muslims have nothing to prove to anyone, neither our loyalty nor our patriotism. We have fought, worked, and bled for India, and it is pathetic how low my own countrymen can go. Story 46. What saddens me is that both sides are arguing and accusing each other. Breaking each other's heads is not the solution. I wish they would talk it through like adults, but I doubt they would. Story 47. The world is sitting on a powder keg, and Pakistan is the fuse. As a failed state teetering on the edge, it harbors terrorism and controls a deadly nuclear arsenal. The time has come for drastic action. Pakistan must be dismantled, and its nuclear weapons should be handed over to responsible powers such as the United States, China, Russia, and India. Only then can true stability and peace be achieved in Central and South Asia. The clock is ticking. Story 48. Personally, as an Indian from the capital, the last 2 days have made me want to learn about what is happening. The information from the media has been terrible, and propaganda has tried to create unnecessary panic. However, soon everyone learned not to trust the claims and news. I am not a jingoistic person nor a follower of Prime Minister Modi, but there is no doubt that Pakistan is characterized by a weak government and a questionable army that uses terrorism to destabilize the Kashmir region. Kashmir was finally en route to prosperous tourism and stability. Thus, the recent terror attack has killed the momentum. It is well known that Pakistan harbors notorious terrorists and is connected to its intelligence services. India is not obsessed with Pakistan. We have an even bigger threat in China, and as the regional power, we are vital to the geopolitical dynamics at play. Our priority is to lead our country towards becoming an economic powerhouse in the coming decades. Meanwhile, Pakistan seems obsessed with India and has little agency or power if China advises them otherwise. Pakistan views itself as the Palestine to India's Israel, but Indians see it as a nation with a confused identity that is highly unstable and possesses nuclear weapons. There is a rising trend of Islamophobia in India, but even that has its reasons and requires deeper analysis than simply attributing it to Modi. The rise of right-wing sentiment has been a symptom of irritation with Islam, which is perceived as increasingly incompatible with the secular values of our nation. India prides itself on its secular nature, but that has been increasingly used to justify minority appeasement rather than remaining free of religious influence. Finally, there is no hatred towards Pakistanis. They are fundamentally the same people in terms of race and ethnicity, especially in northern India. The real issue lies with the Pakistani military and the situation in Kashmir. The Kashmir issue is complex, and a long-term solution for both India and Pakistan would involve integrating Indian-administered and Pakistani-administered Kashmir into their respective countries, with the current line of conflict being recognized as an international border. Only then will it stop. Story 49. I hope this conflict ends immediately. The world could support both nations in investigating the Pahalgam incident, which was the source of the escalation in this fighting. India refused Pakistan's offer to have diplomatic, neutral, and independent investigations. Story 50. Repeatedly, we witnessed evidence of Indian involvement in Balochistan, and now they accuse us of terrorism while launching operations that result in innocent casualties. Their media is highly biased and fails to convey the truth. They are focused on glorifying their own country, which is well known worldwide. We have no issue declaring war on India. To be honest, we have been in a constant struggle against terrorist organizations from within. If India is inviting conflict, then it will face the consequences. We will defend our country unconditionally. Story 51. Jammu and Kashmir is heavily populated with Indian military forces, so it does not make sense that so-called terrorists would sneak past all that just to attack Indian tourists who are not involved in any conflicts. If they truly wanted to cause harm, wouldn't they have targeted the soldiers instead? There are many Hindu Kashmiris in the region, but why would they specifically target Hindu tourists? Assuming there was no propaganda and they were indeed terrorists, how are they connected to Pakistan when Indian borders are so heavily guarded? Many Pakistanis, as well as some Indians with common sense, believe this might just be propaganda from the Indian government. This isn't the first time a government has used conflict or fear to interfere with elections or distract the public. Heightening tensions with Pakistan could potentially delay elections or incite nationalism. Immediately following the incident, Indian Prime Minister Modi went directly to campaign in Bihar, a region known for its strong religious sentiments and lower education rates, instead of visiting the families of the victims. This reveals much about his true priorities. Meanwhile, Pakistan is upset that India did not conduct independent investigations to confirm the terrorists' links to Pakistan. India simply asserted, "It's Pakistan," and launched missiles, resulting in the deaths of Pakistani children and women. It is important to note that many Indian users tend to downvote any comments and replies from the Pakistani side, which makes meaningful discussion difficult. Story 52. I wish for peace to prevail, but I also want people in Pakistan to understand that terrorism will not lead them anywhere. If they stop supporting terrorism, they can progress and develop like a normal country. Both countries have suffered a great deal under British rule, and we are already far behind, with Pakistan even further behind. Story 53. 74,000 years ago, a volcanic caldera exploded and obscured the upper atmosphere with dust, blocking sunlight for decades and halting photosynthesis. As a result of famine, the human population was reduced to approximately 1,000 breeding pairs globally. Everyone alive today is a descendant of those survivors. Here we are, squabbling and fighting because others are different from us, believing we are superior and correct. Any aliens observing us must think we are foolish, and I have to wonder, maybe they are right. Story 54. I am neither Indian nor Pakistani. I am personally unaffected. I want the world to know this. Story 55. Instead of attacking a nuclear power like Pakistan, India should have resolved the matter through diplomacy and neutral, independent investigations. India carelessly brought the world to the brink of World War III. Story 56. Modi wants to get re-elected by rallying the Indian people against neighboring countries. I hope he is removed from office. He and Netanyahu are undesirable leaders. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.